Hey, what's up? This is Chris from Three Doors Down.
And this is Brad from Three Doors Down.
This is Mark from Creed.
What's up? This is Scott Stapp from Creed, and you're listening to Two for the Road on Heavy Consequence.
I think the first time I heard you guys' music, I actually remember where I was. I was driving down Highway 63 down in South Mississippi, and you guys came on CPR at my own prison, came on WCPR, which was, I think WCPR, that was the radio station that got us started and got us signed. But they also had to have been one of the first stations that started playing you guys as well. And Kenny Vest down there was really good about jumping on new artists. And I remember here in my own prison, it had to have been, they had to have been like on the ad date or there shortly after. And I remember the first thing that stuck out to me, especially as a drummer, was I love Scott's snare sound on that song. And I remember that was the first thing that caught me in the lyrics. That was my favorite song, like immediately when it came out, and it sincerely was. And I listened to the fire out of it. And then it wasn't too long after that, you guys came and toured through Biloxi, and like we've talked about before, we opened for you guys over at Knockout.
Oh yeah,
that was back in the day.
I remember the exact same time. I remember where I was too.
That was like 97.
Yeah, 1997. That's a long
Yeah.
time. God.
Yeah, it is.
So, just like you, I remember exactly where I was when I heard Kryptonite. I was driving out back in the day. Me and Scott Stapp used to live on the same street. I don't know how many people know that. He lived on the corner, and I lived down the street. And I remember Ken from Aglish, our agent, was in town for something, and he was telling me about you guys. He's like, "This is the next big band. Wait till you hear this band." And I'm representing them. And I was driving down the street, and it came on the radio. And I can envision it perfectly. Remember, we had that little pond at the end of the street, and I turned by your house, and I remember that song coming on.
Yeah.
Right then, I'm like, yep, it's one of those undeniable tunes. And I remember all of us, I think Creed and Three Doors Down, we all seemed, none of us were like, we weren't like Nikki Sixx, and we weren't like big rock star. We were like your typical dudes in bands having fun, and look at us now, 25 years later, still doing it, right?
Heck yeah.
A little bit better looking than 25 years ago, though. Some of us.
That is the truth, man. Hey. It's like we were just like, I think that was a lot of things like about the bands coming out of the South that you wouldn't really like call them like Southern rock bands, but the bands coming out of the South at the time and were just like genuine. It was genuine music, and it wasn't like a big like a band got together and like, we're going to be this type of band, we're going to go for this, like, we're going to go for this look and this sound. And it's like, it just kind of like, just like you guys, y'all lived at the end of the street from each other. And me and Matt just started playing together with a kid that lived on our street. Me and Matt played freaking t-ball together, and we were always just buddies, and you get together and like it's not like you learned how to play together. You learned how to play music together,
Mm-hmm.
and the sound. So, because it was genuine, it's just like, it ain't like you had to, like I've talked about over the years of like when you write with somebody that you never met before, it's like the first few hours of meeting that person is almost just like learning their language that they speak musically. You never had to do that with your buddies that you started a band with, because you already, you kind of like learned how to talk together, and it just made it so, that music being so genuine.
Absolutely. And then me and Chris would go backstage and play Frank Gambale's guitar workout, learn how to play guitar together.
Yeah. You would play it. I would watch you play it, and go home and my mind would hurt.
We did that for an entire tour. I remember. Oh, Frank Gambale. Look at him now, just crushing it. That guy's insane.
Yeah, he is. I remember the first time I heard you guys on the radio was it was after, because I wasn't in Three Doors when they opened for you cats. But was addicted instantly. I just loved how kind of like moody it was, and I was like, so I was kind of trying to research. This is before the internet, really. So just asking people, you know, what they thought, and there's, you know, you get all these different opinions. But I never really, you know, I don't remember what any of those really were. But I just remember coming to one of your shows, bought a ticket, a friend of mine. We went to see you guys at Biloxi Coliseum. It was a half house situation. It was you and I want to say guitar player was wearing a gas mask.
Finger 11.
Finger 11, yeah. And I was just like, I was blown away by that first band, and I was blown away by Finger 11, and or excuse me, I was blown away by Finger 11. And I have a friend of mine, I made him open up his record store to give me that record. I already had yours, but I made him open up the record store to get me that record that night after the show, and became one of my favorite bands, Finger 11. Because they opened for you guys. It was such a good show, really good show.
I know, man. Y'all, I was at that show too. Y'all sounded so freaking good that night. I was standing there like, because I mean, that was like, you know, I grew up, that same Coliseum is where I grew up going to watch monster trucks with my daddy and stuff. And I used to, I didn't want to be a rock star when I was a little kid. I wanted to drive a monster truck. And so, and all I'd ever seen, the only concerts I'd ever seen in that Coliseum before y'all was country concerts. I'd seen like Brooks and Dunn and I think Toby Keith was opening for him that night even. And some stuff like that. And y'all were the first rock band I ever seen play inside the Coliseum, and I was like, holy crap. Y'all sounded so good.
It was big, man. It was bigger than I've ever seen. Yeah, we're playing there together. Yeah, it'll be a whole house this time.
Oh yeah, it's sold out. That one sold out early. Oh yeah, maybe we can get a monster truck in there for you.
Hey, you know what? It leads me to my next time that we saw you guys play. We actually opened for you guys at the Cajun Dome. Remember that? So it was the band you guys had rescheduled.
It was us and Seven Dust.
We didn't even have a record yet. We didn't have a record, and you guys had that English cat, Arthur. And so they gave me this guy's phone number to call, and they're like, call this guy on your way over there, tell him you come in, all this good stuff. And I called Arthur at like, I don't know if I was fucking excited. So I probably called him at 5 a.m. You know what I mean? And he was like, I'm on the bus. I didn't know anything about anything. So then I called him again at like 10, and then again at like 1. And he told me not to call him until 5. He's like, don't call me again until 5, man. He's we're not even there yet. So, but I just remember like before we played, scared shitless I was, and that was my first time to walk out inside a room with people as far as you could see, completely sold out. And you know, I still remember. It's giving me kind of like a little bit of like anxiety thinking about it, but we played, got through it, everything was great. Went backstage. I look out my dressing room door when you guys were going on stage. I just remember the four of you kind of standing at those big doors that are right there at the backstage of the Cajun Dome. And I saw the ears coming, you know, the wires coming down, the packs, and fucking, I was like, it was almost like watching, like, I was like, holy fuck, this is the real deal. Like, this is getting ready to happen. And then having seen you before and then going out and standing on the side, and I remember me and my first guitar tech, who's no longer with us, was standing on the side of the stage, and Scott came over singing, and I was like really close to you, hadn't met you yet, Scott, but I was looking up and I was like, oh yeah, Jesus Christ, man, looking like this is what we're getting ready to go do, you know? It was a very surreal moment, and I say all that to say this, like, that shaped the way I think about like kind of rock and roll and what we do and the responsibility that we have, not to be like certain things, but like the responsibility of entertaining and what people think when they see us. It's like, it's really, really cool to me. You know what I mean? And I think that like you guys obviously do a great job of it, and I like to think that we do as well. But I just think that it's like, it's bigger than life, even for someone who's doing it. You know what I mean? It's like we can all be fans of each other, and I think that's really cool, man.
And guess what? We're gonna go do it again. We're gonna do it again like it's 1997.
1997.
We all are committed and love what we do, and wrote about our life and our experiences the way that only we knew how individually. And then here we are today, and it's still connecting with people. So man, it's just, like I said, it's a gift, and I don't know the key, and I don't know how to really spell it out, but I know that we were passionate about what we did and believed in it with all of our hearts. And like you heard Brad said, and the other guys, we would see each other and be inspired by each other back then during that scene. You know, we all watched Seven Dust and be like, man, we got to bring it tonight. You know, there were other bands earlier in our career with like the Butch Walkers of the world with me and Mark early on who had, you know, with their band had such a dynamic stage presence that we were like, man, we've got to elevate ourselves. It wasn't so much a competition. It was just like reminding ourselves like, man, this is the big leagues. And we gotta keep practicing. We gotta bring it. And I think that we put that same kind of mentality into our songwriting and into our craft. And you know, and again, here we are after all these years. Another thing that a lot of people might not think about when it comes to the longevity of these bands is that we came from a different era. We're pretty much the last dinosaurs that were around before the internet came and swallowed everything up and made everything oversaturated. Yeah. People still bought records back then. People collected their records, put posters on their walls. Since the internet came out, there's such an oversaturation of music that it's hard to focus on new music. So I think back when we were out, it was crystal clear who was out there getting play on the radio. You kind of digested all that music. So right, and people aren't going to forget that music because it was so out there and so in your face all the time. Nowadays, there's just, like I said, there's just so much and so many different ways to stream and listen to music that you kind of get lost in it. So I think we were the last generation of bands that were that old format where you really digested the music. Both of us, you know, Three Doors and Creed, you know, we'd have multiple singles, you know, 3, 4, 5 singles off a record. And so fans were digesting entire bodies of work, you know, the entire piece of art and really connecting with a record that was like, you know, a timestamp on a moment in their lives. And the fact that we were on tour together back then, both with this success going on at the only real format outside of VH1 and MTV that was delivering music. You know, the options were a lot smaller. So it was easier to consume and really get into when, you know, like Mark said, you didn't have, you know, a billion, you know, songs out there a day to kind of try to navigate through. You know, people were really getting into the artists that they were exposed to, and it was connecting. One thing that I noticed back then that we don't do anymore is radio. Like the radio stations, remember, I mean, we would go at 7 a.m. You guys would be leaving, or just sitting there and play acoustic, and do an interview at, like, you know, at somewhere in, was it Wing Stadium, and was it Kalamazoo, Michigan? Is that what that place is? I think. Mm-hmm. And you guys were at the radio station, then we went to the radio station. We played there, went to another place, played another one, went and played a show, and like you connect with the fans on a different level, and they become part owners of you, I think. Yeah. When they do that in radio, is just, man, I miss it.
I think also the music through that time of y'all and Shinedown and a few other bands that came out at that same time, lyrically, it was kind of, I was watching a little snippet of a Rick Rubin interview, which none of us even, you know, I mean, had anything to do with him. He didn't have anything to do with us, but he was right about what he was saying. And he said, you know, when you write a song, that song almost needs to be like a page out of your diary. And if you think about it, like a lot of our lyrics and Shinedown's lyrics, y'all's lyrics, they're all like, if you listen to that, a lot of those lyrics could have been pages out of somebody's like feelings that they wrote down that day. You know what I'm saying? And fan and you know, he was making a point. He was talking about like the point that the fan comes last. It's like now a lot of bands, and I don't mean to say anything, I don't mean anything against them or not, but they're so like trying to fight over the noise of so many bands around that they're trying to do it with something flashy or something just like shocking, that it's like they're more worried about the fans, when all of us around through that same time period, we were worried about like expressing feelings, you know? Yeah. And I think that those feelings are universal and feelings are timeless. And so I think that has a lot to do with those songs sticking around, you know, because they still have the same they still have substance now like they did then, you know? We started off with the critical acclaim, and then the success got so enormous that the critics were like, "Ooh, we're not supposed to like them. They're too big and successful."
we've got to go find some, band over here that nobody knows about that's quirky and different. And that's what we're going to call cool today. And not to say that the quirky and different band wasn't incredible and talented and wrote great songs, but that's kind of how it felt at the time. The critics were just anti-popular. So as soon as a band got popular and mainstream, it was time to shift the narrative. And so that's how it felt, living it in real time.
Yeah, I think if you want to be in a very successful band, you got to be able to take the criticisms, because they're going to come no matter what, no matter how artistic you are. I look at who I think is the best band in the existence, Led Zeppelin, and hearing all kinds of stories about them getting all kinds of critical. They lashed out at Led Zeppelin, so it's you know what, critics are going to be critics. Us as artists need to not listen to it and just keep pushing ahead, because the more critics you have, the more fans you have at the same time.
That's right. We were never like the cool kids. As like a band, the Three Doors Down has never been like the cool kids. But it's like, and since we've all been around, like how many of those scenes of like the cool kids have we seen just come and go and come and go? They're going to be huge, and they're huge for like a year, and then where'd they go? It's like
the fans grow up.
As time goes on, I became more and more thankful. It's like, and they were just never really paying any attention. Just kind of slid on by.
You go years and years with your kids talking about, Dad, when are you going to do a Creed show, and hearing all the sporting teams playing the songs, and then finally getting up on the stage and playing those songs and seeing how the people have reacted to them. These people have turned some of these songs into the soundtracks of their lives, and they've been waiting to hear it for so long that getting up there and playing it's just a magical thing. I think music is the most magical thing in this world. It's a thing that's it's untangible, but it changes people. It does the most to a person than more than anything else in the world, I think. So it's, that being said, it was magical for us to get on that stage and relive in those days.
It was two parts for me. I mean, it was surreal, and then it was spiritual. Some people call it magical, like Mark just said, and for me, it's a spiritual thing, and it always has been. But looking back at those cruises, man, it's almost like, did that happen? Like, it's like a blur. Everything happened so fast, but it was so positive, and so many things could have gone wrong. And one show, man, it did, with 50-mile-an-hour winds, and the speakers are flying all over the place, and the boat's rocking. And somehow, we managed to get through it. And so it was awesome, and a great way to kind of kick it off and really set the tone for what's coming up this next year.
You can look forward, I think, to the biggest production we've ever had. You're going to see a bunch of guys up there doing this that are really excited to be on that stage, giving it the best they got. And I think there's just going to be tens of thousands of fans that have been waiting to see this for a lot of years, to see Creed and Three Doors Down back on stage together. And it's going to be like going back in the time machine.
It's funny, man. There's two things in my life that I think about every day, really three, but one is the military and the other is those two tours that we did together back in the day. I think about them every single day. A lot of things happen, a lot of firsts, a lot of lasts, and a lot of just memories you just can't, you can't let go of them because you don't really want to. Big part of my life, profound impact for sure.
Absolutely.
I think it's gonna be some great shows. It's gonna be some big shows, and I'm excited about it. I haven't looked forward to a tour like this in a while. I mean, I can't wait. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, the whole thing's right on the cusp of selling out, top to bottom. So it's
heck yeah.
Love it.
People are going to be out there in force.
Getting a lot of sleep, eating healthy, sobriety, taking care of your body so you can show up and give the fans what they deserve every night. I think when you're younger, you're able to kind of get away with not really taking care of yourself and still pulling it off because of your youth. But eventually that crumbles too. But I think at this point in our lives, man, it's I like to call it Disney World backstage. It's a very kid-friendly environment and family-friendly environment on Creed 3 Doors Down tour. So it's a good time.
Puppies and babies.
I'm glad I get to bring my dog with me.
Yeah.
It's the same here for me, man. It's like sobriety made all the difference in the world for me. And
Yeah.
I mean, and it makes it so much more fun. You know, I kind of feared getting sober and going back on tour, and it made it everything that I used to think that I was going to miss about it. It like, man, it just made it so much more fun doing it like this. And like you said, Scott, it's you. I used to call it. I was like, I'll give it everything I got in my pocket. I won't give it everything I got, because I smoke cigarettes and a drink and all that, and all those take away from everything you got. And
Right.
but I would give it everything I had left after those things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was a selfish way of looking at it. And now I can honestly say that, like, I give it all I got and give the
Right.
fans everything you got, and it's
Right.
so much more fun. I mean, you walk off stage knowing that you did your best, and you. I mean, in the reality of it is you did do substantially better, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, it's so much more fulfilling.
I got two big ones. I got one was all my fault. We were on our first time on big late night TV, David Letterman, and I start the song one, and I start the song early while David Letterman's still talking, and he tells us to stop, but we just keep on going. Like, no, we're starting. We're going to keep on going. Finally, he made us stop. It was a train wreck. It was all my fault. But you know, when you have something like that, when it's all on you on national TV for the first time, that sucked. Another one was one of our most famous performances was the halftime show at the Dallas Cowboys game on Thanksgiving. There must have been, I don't know, Scott, you know what they said? It was like 80 million people watching or some crazy number,
Some
right?
crazy number, man.
So the record label says, yeah, we got you guys a spot on this football game. It's the second biggest viewership to the Super Bowl, but you have to do it. Other than Scott's vocals being live, you guys got to play the track. And I said, nope, I won't do it. We've never done that before. I'm not going to do it. I want people to ever think that we ever did that before. And then everybody comes down on me like, this is 80 million people. You're doing it. Shut your mouth. You're doing this. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to do it, I want stacks of amplifiers. I want to be live for that stadium. Whatever happens on TV happens on TV, but I'm going to play that stuff live. So I'm, excited about the opportunity, but also nervous about it being partly the track. And then we get up there and we start playing. Sure enough, within the first 20 seconds of that song playing, the thing skips. The playback skips. And I'm in my head going, I told you guys we shouldn't have done this. But when it was all said and done, they have that 8-second delay on TV, and where they fixed it in real time, and nobody ever knew any better. But now the world knows better. Scott was the only one live. I was playing live at the stadium, but everything else was the track.
Been there, done that.
Mine's a little funnier. I've got quite a few that I could mention. Some of them made the world news, but a few that didn't, that were pretty funny, was being up in front of an arena. You're all rock starring out. You said Spinal Tap moments, right? So I'm gonna give you a Spinal Tap moment. You're all rock starring out. You're looking cool, sold out arena. Everyone's there. You're in your leather pants. You got your wardrobe on. Everyone's kicking it. And then the butt rips out of my pants completely, and I didn't have any underwear. And so I'm standing there and I'm looking at Mark. I don't know if you remember this, Mark, when this happened, but the entire butt ripped out of my pants, and I didn't want to turn around and let the fans know like what happened. And this was during the Weathered tour, right at the beginning of the Weathered tour. And so I'm looking, and Phillips recognized it, of course, because he could see my shiny butt. So I'm looking around like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I had to shuffle sideways like this all the way across an arena stage and go off stage. And the guys, I don't know if you remember this, Mark, you're like, where the heck is he going? and I turned around and like showed you guys that my butt ripped out of my pants. And so I had to run to the back of the arena, put on a new pair of pants, and come back out. But I'll never forget that, shimmy sideways, across the entire arena stage. That totally was a Spinal Tap moment, because you're trying to make it still seem cool, and it's not. So
you could have done the Axl Rose dance. That's kind of a sideways jump. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But
That's
I'll never,
awesome.
I'll never forget that one.